Thank you, Dennis. Good morning, everyone. Our guests today are Roger Holsinger, Professor Holsinger at Minatare High School, and Joanne Krieg is here as well from Regional West Medical Center. And you're probably going, well, what do these two people have in common? Well, we're going to tell you that here over the next 8 minutes or so, because Roger, in his language arts class at Minatare High School, has used some interesting books in his class, and they have a relation to Joanne, and so we're going to talk about that. So, Raj, first of all, tell us how you got involved with Gary Riley's writings.
Well, I owe it all to Joanne because a couple years ago she had dropped off some copies, of her brother's first book, The Asphalt Warrior, down at the paper, and I think everybody had a copy on their desk, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, okay, and I set it to the side and didn't, immediately grab it and read it. But then in the summer or fall maybe, started reading it, and then it kept me reading, and truth be known, I was not much of a reader. The way I looked at it is my job required me to read other people's stuff constantly, and I edited stuff, and the last thing I wanted to do was go home and read some more, and so I kind of pushed myself away from reading, plus it wasn't emphasized a lot when I was a kid. But I started reading this book, and I got into the character, and I could relate to it because it was happening in Denver, and they would talk about Elitch Gardens, and they'd talk about the Brown the Brown Palace, and stuff like that you'd heard about. And so I finished the book, and then I finished the second book, and I've read the third book, and now I've got to get copies of the fourth and fifth one. But I guess, and I said before that Gary inspired me to read, and I never even met him. But had Joanne if she'd never come into the office and left us the copies of the books, I probably never gotten this far with it. Yeah,
and then when you were teaching at the school, you all of a sudden said, "Hey."
Well, I got one of the classes that the first semester I taught over at Minatare High School was a speech class, and then second semester it turned into American literature. And I had contacted one of the publishers with the books and asked him if he would be interested in making a donation to my class, and we could implement it in as part of our reading. And he was more than happy to do it and shipped us some books, and we began reading it the second semester. And I think we're up to chapter 14, and the kids are really, really enjoying it. And I think they enjoy it the same reason I do, is because it's familiar, and they can relate to where DIA is. They've actually heard of some of the locations. And for people that don't know, Murph is a taxi cab driver, and he has a great sense of humor, and he always gets involved in people's lives when he's been told that he shouldn't.
People that he picks up. Yeah.
And it's just a great story, and the kids are really enjoying it, and I figure why not expose them to something a little bit more modern with American literature, and then, we can go back and read To Kill a Mockingbird or Catcher in the Rye after we get done with this. But it's just it's a great opportunity for students to be able to see something different and read something different.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, Joanne. So tell us a little bit about your brother, because he was a very interesting person. Unfortunately, his life was shorter than what we wanted it to be, but nevertheless, very interesting guy, right?
Gary was interesting in many ways. He was a very reclusive guy who, now that we've gone through all his computers and such, have found out he wrote 40 novels in the course of his lifetime, 5 of which have been published. Gary went all the way through Catholic schools. There's a lot of Catholic humor in these. The great thing about these books is they're clean. There's nothing R-rated in these books. They're funny, and that was Gary. He was a nice guy, a good guy, and he went through Catholic schools in Denver, graduated, was drafted, and went to Vietnam, and came back and met the love of his life, and she supported him for 35 years, and she did it because he was such a great writer and she wanted him to write, and so that's what he did. He drove a cab for a while to make money. He earned a degree in English from University of Colorado, Denver, and was very smart, but liked driving a cab because then he could read and write between fares. And he also worked for Remax Realty in a corporate marketing position for years, made enough money to buy a computer and a car, and that was good enough for him. Money was not what drove Gary. Creativity and reading and writing drove Gary, and his books prove it. We're really excited and thrilled that this has been introduced to the Minatare Public Schools. As a matter of fact, Mark and Mike, who published the books, donated books to the Minatare Public Library also. And so they are there. They are at the Scottsbluff Library and available on Amazon, at the Hospital Bookstore, Regional West Bookstore. So Gary would never believe this. He was so humble and so really reclusive. He didn't get out and about too much. He just wrote and read, and he was a great guy.
All right. Let's take a break. We'll talk more right after this.
I keep my money at the bank where I know it's safe.
Providing you with a safe place to keep your money is a trust we don't take lightly. We're closely regulated. We make sure that we're highly capitalized. We don't take long-term risks for short-term gains. We're very conservative, and as a result, we're rock solid. With us, your total deposits are insured by FDIC for up to $250,000. First State Bank, member FDIC. We're big on you.
Back on News Extra, and we're talking to Joanne Krieg and Roger Holsinger, and we're talking about Gary Riley's books that have been incorporated into Roger's classes over at Minatare High School in the language arts class he has. And Gary Riley is Joanne Krieg's brother and Judy Waite's brother, and so Judy's got to be pretty excited about this as well. All right, so he had these two friends that are going through all this stuff in his computer, right? I mean, these guys got to be great friends, first of all.
Well, that's a story in and of itself. They had always encouraged Gary to get published. Their names are Mike Keefe and Mark Stevens. Mike was the former political cartoonist at the Denver Post for 35 years, was Gary's best friend, and Mark is an author, a Colorado author that Mike introduced Gary to. They know Gary's genius as far as a book, being an author and writing, but they couldn't get him to get published. And he had been published in 1979 in an anthology sponsored by George Plimpton called the Pushcart Press. And after that, he just wouldn't do it again. And so when Gary was dying of colon cancer at the age of 61, 3 years ago, he finally relented and gave them the rights to publish his books. And these two amazing friends did it. And that's what I've got now 6 sisters and brothers, and we are all dumbfounded that they not only made the promise, they said they wanted to do this, but they did it. And they found the publisher, they got him published, and they're still doing it. They're going to publish a couple of his novels about Vietnam, I think this year, and they say they are true works of art. So Gary was totally blessed to have ever met these two guys, but for them to be such loyal friends and do this at their own expense, their own time, we're amazed and so grateful.
Yeah. All right, Raj. So when the students, after they you mentioned they read all this, they read it out loud and all that kind of stuff. So when they get done with a book, what is the assignment?
Well, throughout the book, we study different vocabulary words. Some of them had no idea what a Slurpee was. Some of them didn't know what a dead Joe was, a spent cup of coffee. There's some terminology in there that they have never heard about. But we go through, and I pick out words through each chapter, and we study them as vocabulary words. And then chapters 1 through 4 we've tested on, and 4 through 8 we've tested on. And so we'll test every 4 chapters through the book, and then when they get done, they'll have to write a paper about what they learned from it, some of the points that they saw and what interested them. And so I think it's a win-win situation all the way around. They get to read a neat piece of literature and learn something, and hopefully, like I said, maybe it'll inspire them to keep reading.
Yeah. That's cool. This is really cool. So, So I wondered about you going into teaching, but now I guess I'm okay with it. All right.
Well, thank you. If I have Kevin Mooney's blessing, then I'm doing okay.
Yeah. Okay. So all right, very good. So there you have this story, and it's kind of an interesting one, and you can get Gary Riley's books, Reilly. You can get them on Amazon. If you want to talk to Joanne at the hospital about getting them, they're published. They're out there. They're a lot of fun. So hope you take advantage of it. All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Kevin.